last second.
I find no issue with it because, I just got back from the state auditors conference and my jaw dropped because the average salary right now that all state auditors are paying is $50,000. I asked this question, I said, what? Straight out of college, no experience, $50,000. Most of their management team are upwards of $100,000. And
but once that $50,000 salary
I
straight
have
up,
no qualms with paying that. I think it's worth it.
the additional bonus on top of the increase that you're now getting because you managed to get through the legislature are concurrence that we're going to adopt the Kerry study.
And for the office with the 10 employees that you have or whatever number you have, you need 60,000 for the certification or pay, or is that's in the event somebody else gets?
No, that's already funded. That's already funded. That's already in our That's if you turn to the schedule, we're talking 60,264 is the certification pay for 1, 2, 3, 4, 6 individuals.
Okay. I have nothing further. We stand in recess until...
Mr. Speaker, if I just may say, you and I both are very passionate. And I'll miss this exchange. Thank you.
I will need an additional $70,000 just to pay for the certification pay for those on my staff that are qualified. It wasn't in my budget request because I didn't ask for it. But if this legislature is going to leave it in the budget, then I will have to comply and provide them with their certification adjustment, and that would cost the office an additional $70,000. So I just point that out. But I can't tell you how wonderful the 5 Auditor 3s that stepped up to take over the management team of the office has been, and how smoothly it has run since then. They've taken over, and I feel so bad that they can't get one. We can't reclassify 3 of them, 4 of them. I mean, because all promotions and increments were suspended during the fiscal year. So I can't do any reclassifications and give them increments as minuscule as it is by comparison. But it is the Office of Public Accountability, and we have to live within the law, and we will live within the law. And if it is provided to us, we'll provide it to them. If it's not, then we'll have to tell them that it's not going to be provided.
Buenas Micronesia. I'm Troy Torres.
And I'm Johnny Rosario.
Today is Thursday, October 3. Welcome to our studios here in Tumon, Guam. Thank you very much for joining us. We're out of Facebook jail. It has been a beautiful sunny day on our island. Any dengue news? I don't even remember.
No.
No dengue news?
No.
So it's a dengue-free day.
Yes.
Except for, of course, for the patients who've been suffering through dengue, the Lu flu. But thank you for joining us. Thank you very much for liking and sharing this newsfeed. I've been forgetting to ask everyone to like and share Angel in Disguise.
Yes.
ANGELNDSKIES. We just love her. That's the only reason. Mm-hmm. We love listening to her. And thank you. Welcome, Chelu.
Welcome.
It's been a very long day.
It's been a long day because I get a phone call early in the morning to get my ass ready because we're gonna go meet people off a plane today. So I get up, I get ready, and then I get a message like, "Oh, Cello, it's not today, it's tomorrow." I'm like, oh.
Whoops. I guess you should have looked at that calendar on my phone.
Please don't forget that we also have a YouTube page, Candid News Group, as well as our website, www.candidnews.com.
Yes, which is both our YouTube page and our website. The website's grown substantially in readership. I don't know how many views the latest story has, but we just posted it before coming on. The reason we're on now is because we finished the story. And so it had over 100 views, and it was just like 15 minutes ago or something. Mm-hmm. So thank you all very much.
And we're at 9,400 and something. We're slowly climbing to the 10,000 mark on Facebook.
We figure that each time we get into Facebook jail, it's because we get closer to that 10,000 mark. I have no idea.
We don't really know. We don't really understand why we're in Facebook jail, but
we're out.
We're out, and the last time we weren't even out for 24 hours. I think we were only out for 10 hours, and then they put us, 13 hours. We were out of Facebook jail for 13 hours, and then we went right back into Facebook jail.
So I don't know if it's the cussing, but that's like freedom of the speech, you know? And I'm sorry, there's cussing in my story tonight. It's actually like we printed and published with cuss words in it because that's just the expression that we have to use when there's nothing left to describe the deterioration of our political society or its devolvement into the crap that it is. So
and there is people from this administration that is reporting our page.
Oh yeah,
because they don't like what we're saying.
I'll get back at them.
Yeah.
So wait, let me just see what your comments are so far and say hafide to everybody. Well, sorry, I'm not sure if I'm gonna be able to say hafide to everybody so that we can get our show started. But I'll try. Joel Evaristo, Kelly Cruz, Maria Colbert, Dar Moses, who says Ali from Palau. Ali. Ole. Fran Rivera, Vincent James Cruz, Richarlie Allig, Richard Leon, who says, "What's the story on the power grid system identifying bad areas?" I don't know, but I'm afraid to get our next power bill because we got a new meter
Wait, I have
thing.
a question. This whole GWA thing of back billing.
Yeah.
Why is it always, you know how they say something's wrong with the meter? Why is it always I owe and not they owe me?
It's like Docomo. It's never ever their fault.
I don't understand. Why is it biased to always us owing them?
Because it's a monopoly.
If it's a faulty meter, why is it never that they owe us because the meter's messed up?
Because it's a monopoly. They can stick us with the bill, and
it doesn't make sense
and there's nothing we can do about it because they're the only provider of water service on this island.
Okay, but if it's a faulty meter, how do they know it's always at a negative instead of a positive? If the meter is faulty, what kind of fault is that? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah.
If it's a faulty meter and it's not reading right, how do we know it's not? You get what I'm saying?
Yeah, I get what you're saying, but I have no idea. They just stick us with the bill, and then they say, pay it. You can dispute it, but you need to pay it in order for your water service to continue. And if you succeed with your dispute, then you'll get a credit to your account, not even a refund.
Okay, but just to let everybody know, just to put it out there, that really wasn't my idea. That was one of the smartest queens I know. Okay?
A drag queen?
No.
Oh.
She's my queen.
Oh, your queen.
Yeah, and she's very smart.
Oh, okay.
So that was her idea.
Cool.
She asked me that question. I'm like, no shit.
Very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool. Jazzy Fanicoj Jani says, "I love Candid News." Thank you, Jazzy. John Salas says, "Up and ready for my Candid News." Irene Alcantara says, "Hi, Candid crew." Rosie Bear says, "Good morning" from San Antonio. Grace Salone Antonio says, "Hafa from California." Carl Blas in California says, "Hafa." Anthony Chaco says, "Buenos todos." That was so chamorro poasu of me. Buenos todos. Doris.
No, you're not a Chad, you're a Chad.
I'm a Chad. I'm a Chad. I'm a Chad Aguero. Doris Hong Yi says, half a day Kandit News Group. Hi, Doris. Dar says, Ali from Palau, you guys are my favorite news. Thank you, Dar. So one of our plans for expansion is to start doing news. We're going to start in the CNMI and then venture out into, half of my heritage is Palauan. And Eric's half of his heritage is Palauan as well.
So that makes one full person here, Palauan.
We don't. But I'm a sorry excuse for Palauan. I don't know the language. I don't eat balut. I mean, not balut. Well, I don't eat balut either. My boyfriend's Filipino. He eats balut. Balati. I don't eat balati.
I've never tried.
It smells disgusting when it's being cooked. What is it? Arambrum? Arambrum. My cousin Angie and I sprayed 2 Lysol cans to get rid of the smell while it was boiling, and it didn't work. And we just got kicked out of the apartment. Joe Balahaja says, half a day, my familia Kandit.
He's from Sinanya.
Sin City. Hi, Amy Jackson. We miss you too. Hi, Janessa Corpus.
Hi, Cindo. Hi, Miss Betty Ann.
Richard Leon says, what's the story in arbitration panel of QB, Cabot, and Mitchell wanting to give Chump Calvo $14 million? Would Calvo have lawsuit against the port?
He lost that. That's a...
And
remember, he lost that.
Yes, she did. And we also covered the story. We did that story, Richard, about the arbitration panel and how they were all connected to, as you call, Chump Calvo and her gang of merry thieves. Fran Rivera says, I love the news updates on Wix, but nothing beats your live streams. Thank you, Fran. Janessa Corpus says, Candid Unfiltered. Hi, Judy Cave Castillo, who shared. Thank you for sharing, Judy. Thank you, everyone, for sharing. And yes, please vote for Chifey Jackson for Little Mr. Guam. Gina asked, why were we in Facebook jail? Well, a couple of things. Either it was copyright infringements from the sound of the live phone calls that we make, which apparently has been copyrighted by some rapper in a rap song who's not Cardi B, so he doesn't matter. And the other thing is that we have to do this business verification thing that I still haven't been able to figure out because I am a technological numbnuts. Richard asks, what's the Guam Bar Association for, or even AG Leave It Alone, or the OPA, or the Sin Actors, or Little Lou LG and the Loser Staff? Well, find out soon enough when we get to my story at the end of this live cast. Thank you, everyone, for joining. I know there are more of you. I'll try to get to your comments in a bit, but let's move on to the good stuff for now.
Guam police officer Rochelle Benavente isn't messing around. Jake Reish, who was born on Valentine's Day 31 years ago, ran away from her after she pulled him over. She tackled him. According to prosecutor Jeremy Kemper's declaration of probable cause, Mr. Reish kicked Miss Benavente multiple times when she was trying to tell him to lay on his stomach. He kept resisting, but it didn't work. Ms. Benavente subdued him and arrested him. Mr. Kemper accuses Mr. Reach of 1 count of assault on a peace officer as a 3rd-degree felony and 1 count of resisting arrest as a misdemeanor. Ms. Benavente is kind of a badass. Franklin Daniel Santos, 55, borrowed his friend's 1995 Toyota Hilux pickup truck at 8 a.m. on August 8 and decided a few days later he was going to keep it, according to court documents. Mr. Santos's friend tried several times over the next 4 days to contact Mr. Santos about returning his truck. Mr. Santos finally answered his phone at 7 p.m. on August 12th, and he told his friend he was never getting the truck back, according to prosecutor Leonardo Rapadas' declaration of probable cause against Mr. Santos. Mr. Santos then told his friend he was going to strip the truck. According to Mr. Rapadas, on or about October 2nd, 2019, officers spoke to the victim again, who stated that around
5:30 p.m., same date, he arrived at his place of work, and at that time he saw his vehicle parked there, the defendant sitting in it. When the victim thanked him for returning his truck, the defendant smiled at him and drove away in the vehicle. The victim followed the defendant and called GPD. GPD was able to locate the vehicle and pulled it over. In the truck, officers located a small bag containing 3 improvised glass pipes, a plastic straw containing a white crystal-like substance, possible identified as ice, and other items associated with illegal drug use. Mr. Rapadas accuses Mr. Santos of theft of a motor vehicle as a second-degree felony.
Wait, before we move on to the next crime story, can we just discuss this 8-ball for a second?
Wait, he might owe him for something. You might have swapped his truck.
So is the swap gone bad?
I think, or maybe not. But
Maybe
that's
not?
just me. I'm a conspiracy theorist. I always think there's a conspiracy.
I think this motherfucker just borrowed the truck and 8-balled out and was out of his mind.
Maybe he's just a bully.
Could be.
Yeah.
Could be. But this guy, well, he at least led the police to where his truck was. I think the funniest part was he smiles at him. Why did he show up at his work? Just to taunt him?
Probably.
You know, there is something missing from this story.
There is something
There's something missing from
yeah.
this story, but it's a funny-ass story for sure. I'm glad he got his truck back. I hope it wasn't stripped.
Is there another?
There's 2 more.
Okay. Ooh, I don't like this one. A 13-year-old girl is scared to go home after her mother beat her, according to prosecutor Brenda Lynn Joseph's declaration of probable cause against 38-year-old Maggie D. Faisal. Ms. Faisal, according to court documents, punched her daughter's face 3 to 4 times after Ms. Faisal couldn't find her comb. Ms. Faisal then told her, quote, "If I punch you again, you're going to sleep." This happened the morning of Thursday, September 26. Her daughter didn't go to school that day, nor did she go to school Friday. Guam Police Officer R. Padagui responded to a report at the girls' school at 3:20 p.m. Tuesday, October 1st. Officer Padagui met with her school counselor, who told the officer about the incident of family violence. Mr. Joseph accuses Ms. Faisal of family violence as a misdemeanor and child abuse as a misdemeanor. It is unclear whether Ms. Faisal and her daughter have been separated for the girl's protection. A stay-away order from a judge to not contact, hit, harass, or annoy his girlfriend didn't keep 35-year-old Anthony Salas Beneventi Jr. away from her. He is on pretrial release in his 2018 family violence case. Police responded to his girlfriend around 9 p.m. 2 nights ago. She was frightened and crying. Since Saturday, September 28, Mr. Beneventi had been yelling, screaming at, and threatening to beat up his girlfriend when she was dropping him off to his brother's house. He continued to text and call her phone, accusing and threatening her. A couple of minutes before she called police the evening of October 1st, she saw Mr. Beneventi hiding in the dark near her home as she was driving out of her residence. She saw him get into another car and follow her. She drove to Mr. Beneventi's aunt's home in Derido, hoping she would protect her. While still inside her car, she locked her doors and he began banging on the window, yelling that he would break her truck and break her neck. The woman told police she believes he would carry out his threats because he's beaten her in the past. Prosecutor Brenda Lynn Joseph, in her declaration of probable cause, accuses Mr. Beneventi of violation of a court order as a misdemeanor and harassment as a petty misdemeanor.
One thing I noticed in the magistrate's reports, there were 6 today. One was a stale one. The other one, I think we discussed, we didn't want to put it up because there were just too many. We weren't sure whether it was a good idea to put it up, right? But all but that one stale one involved violence. And one thing that I'm noticing these days is where the magistrate's complaints used to be all like DUI and drug possession arrests. Now they're all violent arrests that are being made or that are being accused in court. And people on our page have been commenting what's going on with Guam. And there was even a debate that broke out between, I think, Adrian Camacho and Tim Muir, if I'm not mistaken, because Adrian says, what's going on with Guam? And Tim Muir is saying, it's not Guam, it's just these, these people who whatever, right? But Adrian may have a point here. You know, there just seems to be more violence in the community, and it's if you look at the ages, it's not just young people.
Troy, I beg to differ
Okay.
because of social media, because of email,
Okay.
and us receiving the information.
It may seem that way to us.
It may seem that way to us, and the fact that more people are reporting it.
Oh, that's a good
It
thing.
is our culture to not report things to the police.
I
And
see
that's
what you're
for
saying.
the embarrassment of our family. So now that more and more people are coming out and fighting for their rights, fighting if their brother beat them, if their mom beat them, if their cousin or whoever, things weren't reported. You know, abuse wasn't reported. Nowadays, things are starting to be reported. So I do think it's just because of social media and people finally standing up for themselves.
That's a good thing then. That's a
Yes.
really good thing. If that's
Yeah.
really what's happening, then that's a good thing. That means people are breaking their silence.
Yes.
And so we just have to deal with reality
Yes.
in the justice system.
Yeah, because
right?
our culture is not to deal with the reality. It's to pretend it's not happening. Now we have no choice.
Oh my God, that's the whole theme of my story tonight.
Okay.
Yeah, I love that. Okay. So before we move on to Guput Gobyetnu and everything that's screwed up about the government of Guam and the big party that they have at our expense, something good did happen today, and it was the second hearing on the Medical Malpractice Mandatory Arbitration Act. And I haven't seen any of the testimony. I was in the production room, but you're the one who.
Dr. Wen testified. Dr. Felix Cabrera testified. The whole Guam Medical Association board, they were all there testifying on behalf of the arbitration that it's going to affect the financial because of the what is that called? What kind of insurance is that? Malpractice insurance. They just talked about how it's going to affect them and the society.
So they were against it.
Of course.
They were against changes to the
Of
Malpractice
course.
Act.
But they did say, I believe it was Dr. Cabrera or wait, don't quote me guys, wait. It's one of them who said that maybe they need to look at certain parts of it.
So one of them was willing to compromise
I
on
believe it's
something.
Dr. Cabrera. I don't know
Okay.
if it's. I think it's him or if it is him. But if you can play it. But what I wanted you to play actually is. Can you see Troy's screen? Yes.
At 119, you said?
119 is when Mr. Lebowski's testimony started.
Okay, let's play this.
Or maybe 219. Maybe I'm wrong. Yeah. 219. Yeah.
209.
219. Yeah. There you go. Or 210.
I don't know why my laptop isn't getting any audio. Yeah, there's no volume.
Press it. The volume button.
Yeah, it's all the way up. Oh, I think my laptop's malfunctioning.
Can you scroll up?
I'm gonna turn Bluetooth off. Is that gonna affect the?
It might be going to a speaker.
Let's see. Sorry, everyone. I should have tested this first.
But why would it malfunction?
Can we cast to the TV behind us?
Yeah, you can.
Okay.
Where's the remote? Oh, there.
Sorry again.
Danger others on Guam, thanks to the Arbitration Act. Isn't it true, doctors, that under the Arbitration Act, doctors could kill or injure many, and we'll never know it, with all the protection it offers to doctors. With the built-in secrecy and privacy included, being covered by their colleagues. We heard Dr. Berg say, we're here because of one event, and public policy should be based on empathy, or based on one event. But in fact, we don't know how many events there are. We don't know how many deaths. We don't know how many injuries, because the Arbitration Act prevents those from coming to light. It hides it. They're here.
I forgot we had to pay.
Being justified or rationalized as a standard of care issues to get doctors to Guam. This meeting is not about the doctors. This meeting is about real people. It's about the victims, about our kids, our family, and out of respect for some of the victims. It's about the death of Asher Dean. It's about the death of baby Faze. Joaquin Wacken. It's about the death of Aiden. It's about the death of Charlie. It's about Annalyn Lagrima's father, who we heard about his mistreatment last week at Guam Regional. And the list goes on and on of our injured and dead relatives and friends. There's a negligence and a legal cover-up with the Arbitration Apathy Act. Look around, doctors. Your victims have real faces. Just to be clear, what we are discussing does not have to do with all Guam doctors. I want to make that perfectly clear. Guam has some great doctors. I've seen many, including being treated by the same 5 years. I have 6 kids who have been at one time or the other in the Guam medical system over the last 45 years. Yes, 45 years. Standard of care or standard of treatment for all of them was fine. That is, until Asher entered the Seventh-day Adventist clinic and saw Mr. Siciliani on October 29th. Isn't this what we are talking about, really? Not the good doctor, not even the average doctor, but just that doctor who makes negligent mistakes and should be held accountable to protect all of us. All Guam doctors meet the so-called standard of care until they injure or kill somebody. It's not about the iron standard of care. It's about negligence by a few that the medical community as a whole want to protect in order to maintain their own personal interests. During the last meeting, we heard from Attorney Mitch Thompson and Attorney Bell, who practice on both sides of the aisle, with claimants and defendants. Both agreeing that the cost of arbitration is extremely high, tens of thousands of dollars, as we heard Attorney Keogh say today, making it near impossible to bring these cases to arbitration and to hold these negligent doctors responsible. Last meeting, I was astonished, really astonished, to hear that Dr. Nguyen, acting president of the Guam Medical Association, state that we are confused about arbitration. That was his word, confused. My gosh. He said this act isn't to protect the doctors. It's about the overall quality of care on Guam, and it helps to bring doctors to the island. I'm wondering if Dr. Nguyen has read the act. If the act is supposed to improve medical care or bring doctors to Guam and the concerning standard of care, why is the arbitration process as secretive as we did last meeting? The doctors are already on Guam. Has nothing to do with bringing doctors here. Isn't that secrecy part of arbitration to protect the doctor? Not our families, not the community, to hide who did what? Please, name any other investigative hearing or accusation of negligence on Guam that affords such privacy or secrecy. Why do we lose our freedom of speech forcibly when we agree to the forced arbitration? The proceedings prevent us from speaking about issues. Then, why are we threatened? doctor's legal fees if we wanted to go to court. Again, they're getting due process, a basic constitutional right. Shouldn't we know which doctors can pay? Really, there's great doctors speaking to great doctors on board. I've met many.
So that's a portion of Mr. Lebowski's testimony today or tonight at the Guam legislature. Standing or sitting next to him is Monica De Vera, who lost her son to medical malpractice. And she was present at the last hearing. She was there with a sign with her son's name, but she didn't testify. And this time, she testified.
Right.
We met her. We interviewed her, as a matter of fact. We presented that
shared
here.
her story.
We shared her story.
And Charlie's story.
And it took her, and that wasn't even live. That was a recorded thing. It took a lot of courage on her part to do that interview, and it was because she hadn't talked about it until then. And for her to be at the legislature to talk about this is an amazing thing. And the doctors, I understand, weren't even there. They didn't stick around.
Yeah, right before Mr. Lebowski went up, Senator Therese, I watched portions of this, and Senator Therese Herlagi asked if anybody from the board is there, and everybody was gone
So all those doctors said their piece
and gone.
about
didn't
how they
even
wanted
listen,
to keep their malpractice law.
and they didn't even listen to the things that happened to this family.
Well, some of them apparently don't listen to what the families say about how sick their children are or their parents or whatever.
But I do think Felix Cabrera did stay.
Dr. Felix Cabrera stayed.
Yes.
How about Dr. Nguyen? I think he was one of the people who I
He was
heard-
still there.
He was still there.
Yeah.
But everybody else just split.
Yes.
So we did get a chance to speak with Annalyn Lagrimas today, and
She also spoke.
she did.
She spoke
And
today.
did she tell her story
Yes,
about what
she
happened
did.
to her?
Yes, she did.
It's so sad. So she spoke at the last arbitration hearing, and Miss Lagrimas said that within days of her testimony, GRMC began to treat her differently.
And the doctor asked to be removed from care from her father.
Yeah, and they were
Transferred to another floor
without
with the
any reason given.
explanation.
We also got pictures of a bottle of the medication that he was receiving for that wound, which didn't match the box that it came in or the prescription
Right.
that he had, that the nurses were applying. They were applying the wrong medication to him. This was after the testimony was given.
Right.
You cannot help but believe that this is retaliation for her speaking out against what GRMC
And she did
had done.
apologize to the people who have tried their best to help her father, but she didn't know that that's how she was going to be treated for speaking out.
Such a sad thing. You know, these people in power and the things that they do to everyday people who are just, well, in this case, trying to survive, trying to keep her father alive. It's just such a sad thing. I really hope our senators are not bamboozled by the campaign contributions that they've received from doctors and from big clinics and GRMC.
They did state the senators that were there were Senator Telo Taitagui, Therese Terlahi, Tina Munya Barnes, and Taitano Marsh. Or Marsh
Okay.
Taitano. Yeah.
That's it? Out of
Yes.
15 senators, there's only those 4?
Yes. Yeah.
That's something else.
And they did state because
good
of
for
the
those 4.
testimony, it's something they really have to. And I believe Tina Munya Barnes asked the hard questions.
Yeah?
She did.
Oh, good for her.
So did Telo. And
Good for her.
the testimony of the families were very hard. They can't help but really look into this.
I'm going to listen to this tonight when I do laundry.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I'm pretty sure you're gonna have a whole story written up when you're done watching that.
my fingers are tired.
It's
Maybe
not.
tomorrow.
You're probably gonna you can't help yourself.
It's
You're
one of
not-
those?
Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. We're going to take a break, and when we come back, our top stories.
I find no issue with it because, I just got back from the state auditor's conference and my jaw dropped because the average salary right now that all state auditors are paying is $50,000. I asked this question, I said, what? Straight out of college, no experience, $50,000. Most of their management team are upwards of $100,000. And
But once that $50,000 salary is
I
straight
have no
out,
qualms
wait,
with
let's-
paying that. I think it's worth it.
the additional bonus on top of the increase that you're now getting because you managed to get through the legislature are concurrence that we're going to adopt the Kerry study.
And for the office with the 10 employees that you have or whatever number you have, you need 60,000 for the certification or pay, or is that's in the event somebody
No,
else gets
that's already funded. That's already funded. That's already in our, that's, if you turn to the schedule, we're talking 60,264 is the certification pay for 1, 2, 3, 6 individuals.
Okay. I have nothing further. We stand in recess until.
Mr. Speaker, if I just may say, you and I both are very passionate. And I'll miss this exchange. Thank you.
I will need an additional $70,000 just to pay for the certification pay for those on my staff that are qualified. It wasn't in my budget request because I didn't ask for it. But if this legislature is going to leave it in the budget, then I will have to comply and provide them with their certification adjustment, and that would cost the office an additional $70,000. So I just point that out. But I can't tell you how wonderful the 5 Auditor 3s that stepped up to take over the management team of the office has been, and how smoothly it has run since then. They've taken over, and I feel so bad that they can't get one. We can't reclassify 3 of them, 4 of them. I mean, because all promotions and increments were suspended during the fiscal year. So I can't do any reclassifications and give them increments as minuscule as it is by comparison. But it is the Office of Public Accountability, and we have to live within the law, and we will live within the law. And if it is provided to us, we'll provide it to them. If it's not, then we'll have to tell them that it's not going to be provided.
So earlier today, and I didn't have time to write up the story, but earlier today, there was, we got information that Linda Villa, remember her?
I remember her. She's the one that helped that pedophile guy.
What was his name?
Manjo.
Manjo Quintanilla.
There's Joe Man and there's Manjo. But Manjo Quintanilla the guy who was having sexual relations with students at George Washington High School. She was helping him, and she was removed as the principal of George Washington High School. And as the school year was starting, we were hearing rumors that she was to be
Vice
placed as
principal
vice principal somewhere.
At Agada.
So the skinny is, not me, but the skinny on this on this subject is that she was too good to be a vice principal. So she's turned that down. And her good friend, former legislative speaker Judy Wampat, who's in charge of Guahan Academy charter schools.
Oh, the one that says that Harvard's not accredited?
She said Harvard's not accredited.
Yeah.
Get out.
She compared GACS to Harvard and said, look at the people from Harvard. They're not accredited.
They don't need accreditation.
Exactly. Like after that school, you don't need another school. Well, after
Yeah.
GACS, you do need to get to school. Hello. That was in April when the at the hearing.
Jesus Christ.
You don't remember that, Troy?
No. I
Oh,
tend
my
not to
goodness.
listen to Judy Wampat because her voice is worse
Well,
than Lilian
she
Guerrero's.
stated that they don't need to be accredited because Harvard is a prestigious school who's not accredited.
She is tripping.
Yeah, because they were drilling her on getting accredited.
I remember when she, because when I was working at the governor's office, she was the speaker of the legislature, and it was like hearing nails on a chalkboard whenever she talked. Do you know, Ray? You know, Ray, what the governor is doing? Oh, God, it's just... ugh. Dr. Judy Wampat hired Linda Hernandez Avila to be the dean of secondary schools, of the secondary school or whatever at Guahan Academy Charter School. First of all, why in the world is direct instruction a thing for middle and high school kids? I thought that's supposed to be an element. Like, if you couldn't get them past direct instruction
In elementary.
then you failed to do your job in moving them into the middle and high school years to be on a normal curriculum. That's just supposed to be, I believe it's called curriculum intervention.
But the governor said they're on their way
So-
to being self-sufficient.
So the governor is full of shit. The governor and Judy Wampat are like, they're like the best of friends.
Okay.
So it was no surprise that she sent that condescending letter to John Fernandez.
Mm-hmm.
But it makes a lot of sense now. It makes even more sense now that Linda Avila is there. They're all from the same political basket. It's a basket case, but it's all from the same political basket. And we got word today that Linda Avila is now working there as the dean. First of all, she's not even smart enough to be a substitute teacher.
Isn't GACS publicly funded?
Yes, it is.
So why don't they have the same? Don't they have to answer the same as DOE?
That's why they keep fighting. They're saying they're basically a private school, but they're a private school using public funds, and so
Right.
accountability for those funds, like their staffing pattern, how they spend their money, to answer to the legislature the same way the legislature forces John Fernandez to answer for what DOE does with its money and its levels of achievement and all that stuff. You would think that it would apply to a place like Guahan Academy Charter School, especially considering that it's way past the 5-year mark for them when they were supposed to have gotten their own facility. They're the only charter school that receives a facility subsidy that stays in a government complex because it just can't get its shit together.
No,
And
but
it's
the
been
governor
years.
said, but the governor said they're on their way to.
The governor said share.
the
The governor said,
No,
share,
they're on their way-
John, share.
No, they're on their way to. I just said it. They're on their way to.
Oh, fiscal accountability? Or fiscal
no,
whatever?
that they're. I forget what.
Oh,
she
like
said.
they're going to be the Harvard of the Pacific. That's Mount Carmel. Cello, that's Mount Carmel already. They don't need accreditation, apparently. But the governor said to share. And if they are on their way to Harvard, then unicorns fly in the Western Pacific. Because that school, and this is not to take away from the students and the parents who are the reason they send their kids to GACS is because they believe that their kids are going to get
A better
the kind of
education.
education that their kids need. They need these interventions. And these parents are relying on GACS to have some integrity in their process.
So they
to-
hire Linda Avila. after she was pushed out of
For trying to cover up
sexual abuse.
at a school. What the hell are you thinking, Judy Wampat? Well, okay, wait. Now I understand you don't really think. It's not your forte. Never was, probably never will be. But my God, this is too much. And granted, Judy Wampat wasn't there. I think she's only been there for like a couple years as the GAX, whatever she is. And these problems have been around since GAX started with Donna Dwiggins. But, I mean, you kind of had a couple years to fix the problems, and it's nowhere near being fixed. And now you need the governor to step in as your quarterback for all this money and for the facilities. And she is, because she's your friend, but it came at the expense of the Special Education Services Division of the Department of Education, which has a huge responsibility. And to write that condescending letter to the superintendent of education was completely uncalled for. We're writing a story about that as well, and it will not be complimentary to Dr. Wampat's Harvard non-accreditation. Let's move on to our next story.
It's a tax story, right?
Yeah.
On Tuesday, September 17, Governor Lulian Guerrero called into the Patty Arroyo show on News Talk K57. She told Ms. Arroyo during that interview that tax refunds owed for people who filed between April 1st and April 15 equaled about 17 million. The problem with that statement made on the day is that the Department of Revenue and Taxation hadn't processed the refunds filed between April 1st and April 15 until Sunday, September 22nd. Unless our governor has a crystal ball we don't know about, how in the world did she know that 17 million figure 5 days before the tally happened? As it turns out, she was right on the money. Her seeming Wiccan powers worked. The 8,500 refunds mailed on September 27 for April 1 through the 15th filers totaled about 17 million. But that's just the tip of the iceberg in the perplexing mathematical vortex between the public statements and promises on tax refunds made by Mrs. Leon Guerrero's administration and the actual numbers. It is truly a phenomenon if both are to be believed. Kandit has been poring over income tax refund status reports. These are the monthly reports generated by the Department of Revenue and Taxation and sent to the Speaker of the Legislature. These reports are by the numbers, with data of filings for every tax year from 2006 to 2018. They tell us, among other things, how many tax returns have been filed for each year. Of those returns, how many are for people and companies owed a refund? How much has been paid out for each tax year? How much is still owed to individual and corporate filers? How much interest is accruing in each tax year? How many returns haven't even been processed yet? Many people still are waiting for their tax refunds. Thousands more are anticipated to file returns, with tens of millions more to be refunded for tax year 2018 alone. On September 27, when those 8,500 checks went out, Ms. Leon Guerrero's office announced that the checks, which covered filers between April 1 and April 15, once paid, signaled that the Leon Guerrero Tenorio administration has paid all status A refunds for a total of 144 million fiscal year to date. One part of the statement is false. One part is misleading, and the other part of the sentence is a classic case of stealing credit for someone else's work. The false part: the administration has not paid out all of the refunds. They are still everyone who filed after April 15. Everyone whose refund is in error status or has been suspended and awaiting status A release, and everyone who hasn't even filed yet. Misleading part: according to the reports, tens of millions in tax refunds haven't been paid because of some kind of error or audit of specific filings. To celebrate status A refunds without qualification is to mislead people to believe the job is finished when it's far from over, considering the large sum. Credit taking part: Ms. Leon Guerrero's administration did not preside over the refunding of $144 million in taxes last fiscal year. Former Governor Eddie Calvo was responsible for refunding the first 27 million of tax overpayments in fiscal year 2019, as Ms. Leon Guerrero wasn't the governor until January 2019. The first 3 months of the fiscal year, October through December 2018, were Mr. Calvo's last 3 months in office. Ms. Leon Guerrero claimed that the payments of 2018 refunds seemed slow because DRT had to square away prior refunds. At least that's what she told Ms. Arroyo. That's also untrue. According to the August 2019 income tax refund status report, Ms. Leon Guerrero's administration had refunded 71 million in overpaid taxes for 2018. The difference from the payments made for 2006 through 2017 tax refunds as of August 2019 from the payments already made when she came to office was only 4.18 million. As a matter of fact, the prior year tax refunds debt Mr. Calvo left behind is marginal. Most of the amount due had been unable to be paid due to errors and suspensions on the tax returns filed. The same report shows that as of the end of August, the report was run on September 3rd, 2019, well before DRT had processed tax returns for April 1 through April 15 filers, or knew the amounts that would be owed to them. The government already owed individual and corporate taxpayers $59.6 million. 3 days later, on September 6, she told Ms. Arroyo on her show that there was only 30 million left to pay tax filers. Even if this were the slip of the tongue, as the governor is known to do, and she meant to qualify her statement to say that only 30 million is left to pay for 2018 refunds, that also wouldn't be true. As of that report, there were 41 million left to pay to individual income tax filers alone, not including interest that had accrued to that point. And that's without even factoring the refunds that had yet to be processed for April 1st through April 15 filers. The Leon Guerrero administration before September 20 had paid 71.5 million in 2018 refunds and another 4.18 million for prior year refunds since she took office, according to her own reports. During the weekend that began Friday, September 20, she released another 24.4 million in tax refunds filed for all prior tax years and through March 31st, 2019. Her office stated that 10,668 refunds comprised that 24.4 million release. But that wasn't even half of the amount owed to taxpayers. 59.2 million who had filed through March 31st by the time of that release. And apparently, that payable increased by at least another 17 million just a few days later as DRT processed the refunds owed for April 1st through April 15 filers. By Sunday, September 22nd, DRT had processed and printed the checks for everyone who filed through April 15 and was owed a refund. On Friday, September 27, she released another 8,500 tax refunds amounting to 17 million in total payments. This doesn't include the payable now owed for everyone who filed between April 1 and April 15 with an error suspension status. That August report showed there were 24,466 refunds owed, well before the tally of the 8,500 tax refunds for April 1st through April 15 filing period. If only 10,668 refunds were released, when will the other 13,798 individual and corporate income tax filers be refunded their tax overpayment? Is the governor breaking the law? Coincidentally, 17 million is the amount owed to individual and corporate tax filers who overpaid taxes for tax years 2006 through 2017. When Ms. Leon Guerrero first told Ms. Arroyo on September 17 that a second bout of refund releases would be paid amounting to about 17 million, we assumed this was for prior year refunds. We thought the reason for releasing those refunds after the 2018 refunds meant that this batch of 17 million was entering the final stage of auditing. But when news broke that the second batch amounting to 17 million was for filers between April 1st and April 15, we wondered what happened to everyone owed prior year refunds. It's quite possible that these refunds are awaiting the green light if they're flagged or as suspended or error status. The problem is that the vast majority of these filings would have been flagged and untouched for 10 months now. The amounts in each tax year category are, by and large, unchanged. Is Ms. Leongro's fiscal team purposely not moving on these amounts owed to people for prior years? In the final appeal of merits of the PST versus Government of Guam landmark case that ordered the payment of refunds within 6 months of filing, the U.S. Court of Appeals for the Ninth Circuit plainly ruled the practice of withholding refund payments illegal. Circuit Judge Marcia S. Berzon, in the opinion she penned for the court, wrote in part, "We acknowledge that many governments struggle to balance their budgets, particularly in times of economic uncertainty and increasing fiscal demands. But as the district court correctly concluded, Guam's solution, refusing to pay concededly valid requests for income tax refunds for years on end, was illegal. So the questions are, where's everyone else's tax refund? When will they be paid? How much interest is accruing? Will Ms. Leongro be able to improve her thus far dismal record of paying tax refunds in the upcoming calendar year?"
And then the $17 million question, where are those 13,000, what is it?
13,949
or
something like that.
Tax refunds. Where are those refunds? And so we were curious about this situation because of that 17 remark that she made on Patty Royal show, right? And then we started to get calls and messages from people who hadn't received their refunds. And they filed a long time ago, or was for a prior year.
Yeah.
And they asked us, because they understand what the law says, what the PSTK says is that it's first in, first out. If they filed and it's a prior year refund, they go to the head of the line. But it seems like, and the only thing that I can think is that, as your story says, it's being held back for error status or suspended. But it doesn't take 10 months to clear up that many error status, and at least the bulk of the error status and the suspended status. Maybe some of them are under a full audit or something, maybe, but not $17 million worth. That's ridiculous. And so the Leongro administration obviously has a lot to answer for, but won't answer.
Of course.
They won't. You know, they're perfectly happy just avoiding the tough questions.
Yeah. Because if I tell you the sky is red, you better believe it's red.
Yeah.
Even though it's blue.
Yeah. Yeah. It's funny how it's always the dumb ones who think everyone else are dumb. So, anyhow, we'll try to keep up with that story. We'll try to keep up more with that tax refund story for the benefit of those of you who are still waiting for your tax refund. The governor is full of shit. In a 6-minute 31-second special address in the wake of a federal bombshell on local corruption, Governor Lulian Guerrero addresses police and public corruption as though this is the first time she's ever heard of it. Should we play that address for everybody so they can see it? Yeah? Let me go to it. It's on the YouTube. Oh, actually, it's in my email. So that people can see exactly what we're talking about and what she was saying. I should cast it, right? So that people can see exactly what we're talking about. I'm on yeah, just my screen, right? I should cast it, right?
Half a day.
I'm on
my screen, right?
Sorry, guys. Just give us a second to turn off this TV. No, it's not working. Oh wait. Mirror display or extend desktop? Sorry, this is not gonna work. Never mind. You don't have to. We won't subject you to her voice anyway. Let's go back to my voice. Governor Leon Guerrero addresses police and public corruption as though this is the first time she's ever heard of it. The public testimony of Federal Bureau of Investigation Special Agent Rafael Fernandez at District Court during the arraignment of Jonia Mayor Jesse Blas was a political indictment against the mediocre posture of public officials toward the corruption that stares us in the face each day. But it wasn't like it was a wake-up call. That's not the same thing. Ms. Leon Guerrero and our other elected leaders have been very much aware, some of them even complicit in public and police corruption. They've just decided to do nearly nothing about it. No, a wake-up call it is not. Let's call it what it plainly is. Mr. Fernandez lit a light under Ms. Leon Guerrero's ass, and it attracted the white-hot light of the media and public scrutiny to the sweat drenching her leather throne at Mount Adelup. Ms. Leon Guerrero's October 2 special address to the people of Guam was full of the standard platitudes to digest once those in the political class are slapped with the social reality that stings us each day. A couple minutes into her orchestrated speech, she says, quote, "We have seen those we entrust with power corrupt our communities with drugs, exploit women, and rob us of the faith we place in each other. And slowly, when things don't change, trust turns to fear and fear becomes frustration. I understand these feelings because I feel them too," unquote. Bullshit. Not only has Ms. Leon Guerrero turned a deaf ear to the cries of corruption she clearly has heard, she's literally run away from questions of her own corruption, and her young administration has been accused of widespread corruption. Even Carl Gutierrez and Eddie Calvo weren't accused of corruption so early in their administrations. Let's start with the obvious. Perhaps the grossest picture of corruption made in our faces was the moment Ms. Leon Guerrero smiled for the cameras to sign $30 million into the bank her family owns, literally handing the money to her son, the Bank of Guam president, 2 chairs away. It was July 25, and government officials involved with the sale of bonds for the construction of the 3rd Luzon trash sale gathered with executives from the Bank of Guam for a public signing accepting the bonds into the trustee account. Kandit doggedly asked her Director of Communications, Janela Carrera, how the administration would handle the conflict of interest every day that the unexpended portions of the money stay in the trustee account. In one of our most popular live calls to a government official, Ms. Carrera dodged the question and refused to acknowledge that a conflict even existed. Even Speaker Tina Muñoz Barnes ignored the legislature's responsibility to serve as a check against the corrupt power of the governor was wielding in this particular instance. Kandit asked her weeks before the money was signed over to the bank whether she or her colleagues would put rules in place to govern the spending of the proceeds while the inevitable conflict between the governor and her family's bank existed. Ms. Muñoz Barnes was front and center for the cameras that day, as though no conflict existed. The corruption didn't even faze the island's elected Attorney General, Levin Camacho, who signed the documents for the cameras as well. Indeed, the conflict of interest existed the minute Ms. Leon Guerrero took office. The Bank of Guam houses the government of Guam Treasury. More than $1 billion in transactions from several checking accounts, savings accounts, and trustee accounts are drawn from Bank of Guam accounts, all of it money taken from our paychecks, granted by the federal government, or loaned from bondholders. Who determines when and where money is spent? According to practice and all the case law there is on the subject, it's the governor. She gets to say how long money will sit in her family's bank, accruing to the benefit of the bank's lending and money-making ability, and in certain cases accruing interest to the bank from the Federal Reserve. That's exactly the problem with the Section 30 deposits into the Bank of Guam as the trustee of $70 million received from the federal government the evening of September 11. It took the governor 9 days to begin expending that money for tax refunds. That first round of check writing didn't even eat half the amount. The issue is that every day that money sits in the trustee account, the bank has been able to earn a special type of interest on what's considered excess deposits by the Federal Reserve Bank. According to formulas provided by the Federal Reserve Bank, it is estimated that Ms. Leon Guerrero's bank earned about $4,000 each day during that 9-day period. Every day excess deposits are marked in that account, the bank is able to earn money. The longer more money stays in these accounts, the more money the bank makes off the taxpayers. And who decides how long the money stays in that account? No one but the governor. Despite her dismal record on the prompt payment of tax refunds, Ms. Leon Guerrero led the call to keep and to permanize the increase to the business privilege tax. It is the most regressive tax we have, targeting the poor and the working class. At that July 25 signing ceremony, Ms. Leon Guerrero took the opportunity to discuss her need for the BPT increase to 5% to remain. This was a few days prior to her infamous "forever" comment. She claimed the Trump tax cuts eroded the government's revenue base. Those tax cuts reduced corporate tax rates by 17 points. We took the opportunity to ask Ms. Leon Guerrero whether she'd consider replacing the BPT increase with an increase to the corporate income tax rate by at the most 10 points. First, her budget director, Lester Carlson Jr., a symbol of Swiss cheese integrity himself, tried to wave us off with a half-witted lesson on the mirror image tax provision in the Organic Act. So we schooled him on Section 1421D, which clearly gives the government of Guam the power to increase income tax rates by no more than 10 points without breaking the mirror image provision. Do we have that? Do we have that clip? Can we play it so people can? I'm pretty sure.
Reports every day.
And Janella goes to try to save the days here.
A cash flow, and so we're tracking very positive every day on our cash flow. Some days it's 10 million, some days it's 15 million. So that's a really good sign for financial stability. Our revenue projections, I am also tracking collections. We are a little bit short of budget in our income tax collections, but our corporate collections, our GRT, we are tracking a little bit above maybe the budgeted projections by maybe 10 million, something like that. But overall, the collection, and this is actually public information, you can just go on the website. It's in our CRER, sorry, which is our revenue.
We're on track for that,
Oh no, I'm not asking about the 6-month thing. I'm asking.
as the governor said.
So, seeing their payments a lot quicker. So those are all good, I think, performance indicators of what, but, you know.
A lot with the help of the team to try to be as transparent as possible. The CRER is being quoted erroneously again and again. We have made a point. We had a special economic service meeting with Senator St. Augustine the earlier part of this month to fully inform people that the tracking number has to be taken with a grain of salt, and the anomalies, particularly the backing out of the ACTC, which we get reimbursed for, that goes right back into tax refunds, but it's not revenue, okay? So the number, and it's there. You take 38 million less 17 million in anomalies.
You can.
You know, it comes out to 20 million. So
Even the governor has this perplexed look on her face because she knows Lester's lying.
Finances, like, take a look at the companion.
Ms. Leon Guerrero said
special fund.
no to this whole
just
corporate
released
income tax
some
idea. She
reserves
had
imposed
not
on,
and
a number of
refused
different
to
agencies
consider
to
it.
get money from property.
What does she care if the BPT remains at 5%? Her bank doesn't pay taxes on gross receipts. Years ago, her family joined the other banker families of this island in quietly lobbying senators to place exemptions on banks that effectively neuter any tax bills on most of its receipts. But corporate income taxes, her family has benefited enormously from Mr. Trump's tax cuts on corporate income. Raising that rate would be a sacrifice for the Leon Guerreros. I guess we know whom she's chosen to sacrifice. About a month later, we tried to catch up with the governor as she was exiting a proclamation signing ceremony at the cabinet conference room. The woman must have been practicing for a 5K. We only had one question for her. Hi, Governor. Why did you approve a tax settlement for two rich people with close ties to your administration? She ignored the question and our camera as she sprinted from the back door of the conference room to the back den of her office, literally scurrying from the light into the dark like a cockroach when the lights go on. Her executive security officer, AJ Demapon, who is among the executive security staff that goes on trips with her and her husband after she promised not to do that, blocked the camera's path. Adelup has never been held to account for any of it. Perhaps that's what's craziest about the situation the everyday people of the island find ourselves in. Where is the Attorney General in all of this? Where is the public auditor? Where is the Guam legislature? Where is everyone who is supposed to provide layers of checks and balances against the corrupting power of the governor? Are they just going to sit around and do nothing while the governor rapes the people's tax money and sends more of us into poverty without a second thought? And so far as tax settlements go, it isn't just the two rich businessmen with close ties to her administration. What about the $17 million tax settlement bill owed to the taxpayers from Calvo-owned MidPac? The governor has been busy sticking the tax bill to small businesses while a multi-million-dollar tobacco and alcohol corporation is skating on tens of millions of dollars on taxes. The original tax receivables from MidPac alone can erase the government of Guam's deficit. Yet here we are, the poor and working of this island, paying for the forgiveness of the greedy and the banks. Violations of the antitrust law of Guam. There isn't even equal opportunity for that largesse to big corporations. You're either in or you're screwed. Her administration was involved in a conspiracy with Miss Munya Barnes, Guam Regional Medical City, and Calvo Select Care to boot Take Care Insurance out of the government of Guam health insurance contract procurement. There is irrefutable evidence between conspirators in black and white that shows leaders at the highest levels of government were involved in major and clear felony violations of the antitrust law of Guam. The result for thousands of our people? Double the rates compared from Take Care's rates last fiscal year to Aetna's rates this year. The result for taxpayers? Tens of millions more we have to fork out because of the corruption of the health insurance contract process. Ms. Leon Guerrero, in her special address on corruption, calls on the Attorney General to accept complaints of corruption as part of the solution that's always been there. No duh. We here at Kandit sent a written complaint that we publicly discussed to the Attorney General and to the Governor on this issue, yet nothing has been done. We even registered our complaints against the illegal placement of scores of Mount Carmel billboards over a period of months with Ms. Leon Guerrero's administration. Unlike everyone else, Mount Carmel was able to use public property to conduct its business on large signs without a permit. Ms. Leon Guerrero stopped the Department of Public Works from fining her friend and fellow Democrat Attorney Mike Phillips' beloved school from facing accountability for its illegal actions. That egregious snub of the law is nothing compared to Ms. Leon Guerrero's decision not to fire Mr. Phillips from his post as Seaport Authority legal counsel, despite ironclad evidence on tape that Mr. Phillips led a conspiracy that hurt 7 fired port workers and cost ratepayers $7 million in legal fees. Or how about the missing records at Child Protective Services involving a cover-up by the Archdiocese and Mr. Phillips of a 12-year-old Mount Carmel student who was being raped by a former Mount Carmel employee? Where is the police investigation into the rape and into the cover-up? The governor is as blind to injustice as she is to the economic turmoil that is the reality for the 99% of this island. Nothing illustrates that more than her decision to host an invitation-only celebration of her team's deficit spending carnival festivities at Government House and Civil Defense with fireworks. They couldn't even inform the public, so that the kids in the surrounding neighborhoods could wait and watch the pretty display of all our money going up in smoke. They did this against the backdrop of a controversial decision to take $400,000 in qualifying certificate agreed to payments from GRMC to the Council on the Arts and Humanities Agency to pay for 100 people to travel to Hawaii next year for FestPac. That's $4,000 per ticket for our junket. An illegal, all expense paid trip, and no one who has the power to stop it is batting an eye. And then there's the cover-up of chemical dumping at our airport. Kandit recently uncovered a scheme by airport executive manager Tom Atta, where Mr. Atta brought in a plastic donkey and staged a photo op in order to present a false narrative on what amounted to the dumping of toxic chemicals at the airport. This fiasco started to become public literally days after the legislature passed a bill authorizing the AG to enjoin Guam to a class action lawsuit against the manufacturers of the flame retardant PFAS, the exact chemical being dumped into our aquifer by the airport's management. We asked Adelup for comment about the growing number of airport firefighters showing symptoms of toxic exposure and Mr. Atta's alleged part in directing the firefighters involved to lie to EPA investigators during their interviews with them. Adelup hasn't said shit. For families, the struggle has been real and the hustle has been hard. And not everyone has been strong enough to weather the storm of corruption. Many have given up to the quicksands of poverty or to a life of crime. Despite the damage of her political corruption to the moral fabric of the community, nothing compares to her ignorance of police corruption that Ms. Leon Guerrero has been all too willing to accept. The testimony by FBI Special Agent Fernandez took the governor for a turn on her political merry-go-round, probably because of how frank and direct Mr. Fernandez's words were. They ring through the annals of the politically connected and the social elite, but not at their high-class bars and balls where they are used to their perches. Now, Ms. Leon Guerrero and her snooty friends have to face these realities by looking each of us in the eye and summoning whatever personal constitution she can muster to explain how she detests police corruption just as much as the rest of us. But she can't. One of the criminal conspiracies Mr. Fernandez mentioned was the investigation into Superior Court martials for human sex trafficking of women with active warrants. Some of the women elected to office, the governor included, acted like this was the first time they'd ever heard such a thing. Even prior to Ms. Leon Guerrero's assumption of office, Kandit had begun telling the story of Marshal Allen Eckley's sexcapades, where he extorted and subdued at least 13 women with their freedom in exchange for sex. We have repeated this story and filed complaints. We went to the FBI. We went to the Attorney General of Guam. We went to the Superior Court, and we went to Adelup. The local government, Ms. Leon Guerrero included, certainly didn't do jack shit about Mr. Eckley until Mr. Fernandez blurted it out on the stand in district court. And how can we forget the plunder of our civil rights under color of law by the former Mandania Drug Task Force? Well, Ms. Leon Guerrero forgot about it. Despite several written, verbal, and media-placed complaints of warrantless searches, politically motivated arrests and raids, planning of drugs, police brutality, stealing of drugs and money, and unlawful arrests by an entire division of the Guam Police Department, there is not one internal affairs or criminal investigation into the conduct of those pieces of trash in uniform. Police Chief Stephen Ignacio has not answered any of our questions regarding accountability for the actions of police officers Sang To, Steve Munoz, Chris Champion, and Fred Chargaloff, Customs Officer Eugene Egros with the Digdu, and Port Police Officer Kylie Maurer while they ran the Bandania Drug Task Force. No one has checked the evidence locker for missing drug inventory. No one is keeping tab on each time these officers have perjured themselves on the stand in court. No one has a running log of their warrantless searches and off-the-record raids of enemies of theirs. Mr. Ignacio and his spokesman, Sergeant Paul Tapao, still have yet to produce and disclose legally required internal affairs documents and data that will give us a glimpse into what GPD has done to hold officers of the law accountable for the righteous enforcement of the law. We recently asked Mr. Tapao and Mr. Ignacio to update us on one such supposed internal investigation into information that police officer Albert A.J. Belahaja had raped a boy when he first became a police officer. It has been well past the 90-day investigation period, and yet GPD has failed to provide any information required for disclosure on its website. GPD hasn't even emailed the documents since we asked. Adeloop knows about all of this. We tend to remind them to the point of nausea. It's just that the governor has done nothing at all about any of it. Governor Luliang Guerrero telling us that she will do something about corruption is like Barbara White telling us the sun will come out tomorrow, baby. The fictitious little orphan Annie sings that refrain with way more truth and conviction. So get out your umbrellas and turn on the Kandit, because rain and darkness are in our political forecasts. If all this seems too much and too obvious to be real, then we challenge you to think about this. Name one thing, just one, that the governor has done to stop corruption on the island in any meaningful way. Put favor. Don't even get us started. What a joke of a MAGA haga.
She's running the government like her bank. No,
Well, her bank's making money.
no, I'm serious. It's not even a joke.
She's a joke.
Yeah, that was a great piece, Troy.
Thank you to the entire Kandid crew
You're so
for
full
helping
of
to write
crap.
that. He's gonna kill me, but Carlos, thank you for your contributions. And also to Jacob Nakamura. And Barbara Brown. Barbara Brown didn't help with this one because there wasn't really a weather thing, except for a little slight at Barbara White's bad forecast. You remember that when Barbara White would tell us that it's going to be sunny, and then so you got your umbrella out.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
My dad used to make fun of her all the time, all the time. Let's go over some comments.
My favorite part.
Oh, we got a lot.
Your turn.
Where did we end?
Um,
Okay, I think I got it. Beneventi's auntie behaves like Tories in action, no action. Well said. Gina Call says, you guys are getting smoother with your new setup. Thanks, Gina.
Thank
Hi,
you, Gina.
Rudy. Pat Kanga says, hey, Troy and Johnny.
Hi, Pat.
Richard Leon says, Avila had to be a bona fide loser, and the book covers all shame. David Lebowski says, thank you, Kandit. No, thank you, Mr. Lebowski.
Thank you for the fight. It's a great fight.
Charlie Alex says, nope, not at all true. Gina Call says, yes, and we are already starting a new fiscal year since October 1st. So what does that mean? That collection of taxes owed is way behind. Where are they going to get the rest of the money to pay out the leftover tax refunds?
Gina raises a very good point because the tax year and the fiscal year are on separate tracks. The tax year begins in January, the fiscal year begins in October. So there's this 3-month period. So whenever the legislature so-called appropriates the money or backs the money out of the revenue category of the budget, it's not precise to a tax year, it's to a fiscal year. So she has a point, that the Leon Guerrero administration isn't even properly accounting for the fiscal year money backed out for tax refunds.
Mike Rosansky says, oh shit, I'm on the live. Pulling over to the side of the road. Hoffaday, Troy, Johnny, and Eric. Hi, Mike.
Hi, Josh. Hi, Brandy. Hi, Marie. Hi, Eileen. Thank you for your prayers, Eileen.
Rissa Delgado Castro says, get the FBI on loose corrupt ass.
Please, someone.
Carl Blas says, well written, Troy and Kandit. Biba Guam says, hardcore. Destiny Farnham says, y'all's nailed it.
Cool.
The governor, Rissa Castro says, the governor's office sign is in Bank of Guam, green and blue.
Is it really? That sign's in green and blue?
I don't know.
Golden.
Gold and blue?
Yeah.
Shrunken Dokun.
That's all I have. Do you have more?
No, that's all I have.
Oh, let me check YouTube if anybody. That was great. Chelo, I really you nailed it all.
Are we digging it?
Everything,
We're
yeah,
digging it?
yeah.
I left out. There were a couple of things that we left out of.
Of that, like
Yeah,
what?
but remember when they were seizing the vapes, the marijuana vapes, or what?
Yes.
Not marijuana, CBD.
Yes,
The
I
CBD
remember.
vapes. There was that. I left out the JD Tin Cap stuff. Not because I don't enjoy bashing her over the head metaphorically every now and then, but the background checks thing, the GMH payroll issue, and I'm sure there are things we don't even remember. It's been 10 months of just complete
And just to
BS.
let you know, a lot of this police corruption, we have, whenever we write to the police chief, we also CC the
Adeloop.
AG's office, we CC Adeloop. So it's not like they're not aware of what is going on.
They're just responding politically, reacting politically.
A knee-jerk reaction, right?
Yeah, well, because they're in a bind. Now, the FBI said it, and the public's asking, what the hell? You know? And so now they're in a real bind.
Yeah,
But
well,
they've-
probably when they hear from them, they're like, oh, that's just Troy.
Yeah, so fuck you guys. We were right the whole time. Fuck you, Lou. Fuck you.
And that feels good. That feels good. That feels good that we're making some kind of headway, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, now 10 months, now you have to catch up 10 months of your corrupt administration. So I don't know how you're going to go after corruption. You're just going to end up going after yourself. We love you, Guam.
Thank you for hanging out with us.
Hi, Cousin Angie.